Good morning, Patriots. Good morning. Welcome to the 297th consecutive Friday meeting of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots. We got 120 of you guys that decided to get out of the shack this morning. I know damn well a host of you came here for those donuts. Quite a healthy turnout. I do appreciate it very much so. And thank you for joining us in demonstrating our support for our men and women in uniform that are serving American interests in faraway lands. Believe me, your support does not go unnoticed, nor does it go unheard. And to those of you who may be following us on YouTube, thank you for your support as well. You know, I'm sure that most of you are now aware that the United States Senate has confirmed former Representative Doug Collins as United States Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Secretary Collins, who served in Congress from 2013 to 2021, is an attorney, and he is a colonel in the United States Air Force Reserve, where he serves as a chaplain. And now he's going to be heading up an agency that's been marred by budget shortfalls, marred by millions paid out to executives who weren't able or eligible to receive them, and they've been marred by continued complaints from veterans about the long wait times for treatments. No one knows better than this Red Friday group that America owes her veterans far more than the VA has historically delivered. It's time we right the ship, although it'll definitely be a challenge to manage a government organization as sprawling as the Veterans Administration, 400,000 employees, 1,300 health facilities around the country. So we wish Secretary Collins all the success and Godspeed in ultimately delivering timely and quality care for our veteran community. They're long overdue. And the time has come to correct the chronic deficiencies and deliver for American veterans. Will you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, thank you. You know, I saw that everyone was gobbling down one of those sweet treats that were made available prior to breakfast this morning. And for our newcomers, our Red Friday group celebrates birthdays on the first Friday of each month, and we're fortunate to have volunteers within the group to sponsor those treats each month. And I want to thank Bob and Pam Williams for bringing donuts to the party to honor our February birthday celebrants. Bob and Pam, please stand for a second. Pam is in the back. Bob is right up front here. Bob, from what I saw, you brought sufficient quantities and you didn't have to cut any of them in half. Good for you. Well, since Bob is a United States Navy veteran, let's give Pam and Bob a shout out using the Navy ooh-yah. Ooh-yah. There you go. I want to ask that all of those that are celebrating a birthday in the month of February, will you please stand? If you're celebrating a birthday, or if you can't stand, raise your hand. We got a few of you in here. Let's give a hoo-ah for these guys and gals. I do want to make mention that we have two that are quite special birthday celebrants for this month. Ken Anderson, raise your hand back there. Ken celebrates his 90th birthday this month. And then we got Lou Bird. Raise your hand, Lou. Or stand. Lou celebrates his 97th birthday this month. Lou, just keep on chugging, bro. You're a Marine. You can handle anything. You know, I'm sure that all of you veterans can recall one of your more interesting experiences where you encountered a fellow service member whose cornbread really wasn't quite cooked in the middle. Believe me, I had my share as well. The other day, I was thinking about one of those characters that I encountered along the way. He was an Army captain. He was a JAG officer. And he was temporarily assigned to my armored cavalry unit to get some field experience while we were conducting some tactical exercises at Fort Irwin in the Mojave Desert of Southern California. And I suppose they stuck him with us because they didn't know what else to do with him. My unit commander came to me and he said, "First Sergeant, get this man out in the field and let him see what soldiering is all about." Then he said, "Top, keep that SOB out of my hair." So my driver and I loaded the captain in our Humvee and we headed out to one of the outposts, bouncing across the desert at about 45 miles an hour. And while we were on the move, the captain kept trying to read a compass while he was inside the Humvee. And then he'd look at his map, and he kept insisting that we needed to be going in a certain azimuth in order to get to this forward base that we were headed to. Well, back then, GPS was pretty much still new technology and didn't work right a lot of the time. And the captain just could not comprehend why he was having such a hard time getting a reading on his compass. He handed his compass to me, and I was in the front seat, and he asked me to try to see if this compass might be defective. He didn't believe me when I told him we had to stop the vehicle and get out in order to have an accurate reading. He said, "First Sergeant, Humvees are made out of aluminum." I said, "Sir, that's partially true. The body is made predominantly of aluminum, but the frame, the wheels, the drivetrain, all the weapons, the gun turret, and all the other gear inside the vehicle aren't made of aluminum. They're predominantly made of steel." I said, "Sir, you've got to get out of the vehicle to get a true reading." So then, rather than having us stop and get out of the vehicle, he actually stuck his hand out of the window and tried to read the compass as we were moving along. He still could not figure out what was wrong with that lensatic compass. Well, I finally had enough, and I had my driver stop the vehicle. Captain got out and was trying to shoot an azimuth with his rifle on his shoulder, only a few inches away from the compass. He still couldn't get a good reading. What a surprise. So I finally convinced him to remove his weapon and his helmet and try again. Well, he finally got a good reading. He pulled out his map, and then he proudly announced which direction we should be headed. Well, as tactfully as I could, I tried to show him we were not where he thought we were on the map. And if we traveled in the direction that he wanted to go, it would take us out of our way at least an hour. Thank goodness, I finally talked some sense into him, and he kind of went into hell. And he clammed up when I told him that my driver and I had made the run a few times already. We knew exactly where the hell we were and how to get where we needed to be without a damn compass. And for some reason, the captain didn't speak much for the remainder of the day. And I'll have to admit that really did not disappoint me. Now, there were a couple of lessons learned from this experience. I think that the captain learned to place trust in senior non-commissioned officers' advice. And after being told numerous times to never trust the lieutenant with a map and compass, I learned you can't trust any officer with a map and compass. This morning, I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker, Elias Weiss. Elias is no stranger to the armed forces. He is the grandson of a late United States Army Korean War veteran. Since earning a journalism degree from the University of Arkansas, Elias has worked at daily newspapers in the Midwest, Southeast, and Southwest as an investigative reporter and editor covering veterans issues for the past 6 years, since 2018. He is a strong veteran advocate. He's been responsible for breaking several blockbuster investigations about stolen valor and GI Bill scams in the Phoenix New Times, which is a free digital and print media company based in Phoenix, as well as the In Maricopa magazine, where he serves as the editorial director. Elias is also airing a podcast every Thursday on KFNX 1100 AM radio in Phoenix from 4 to 6 p.m. He's currently the editor of a new magazine titled American Veterans, which highlights topics on veteran health, policy, education, history, and more. Elias will be joined by Susan Buonsanti, who is a victim of stolen valor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Elias Weiss and Susan Buonsanti.
Well, we're getting the presentation loaded up, but I couldn't have had much of a better intro from Mr. Nations here. Thank you so much, and thanks for the invite, guys. I live in the city of Maricopa right now, but I have been covering stolen valor all over the valley, including a case in Apache Junction. And Susan here is, she has stories to tell from that case that's came out of here in Apache Junction. So, listen, guys, I'm not a veteran. I've never served, not a day in my life. If I came up here today and told you all that I did, if I told you all that I don't know, had a Purple Heart, that I saved 100 lives, killed 1,000 bad guys, you guys gave me coffee and breakfast and I went on my way. Can I get a show of hands here? How many people think that would be a violation of some law? Surely, right? Anybody? Just hands if you think that. Don't raise your hand if you don't. It's not, by the way. It's perfectly legal. It's my First Amendment right. The same thing that allows me to write these stories, like this gentleman right here. Stolen valor manifests itself in many ways. Sometimes it's illegal, most of the time it's not, and most of the time it's illegal, it never gets prosecuted. But this is a case of stolen valor that, well, this was the biggest case that I ever covered, and it's infuriating, to say the least. This is a guy who was a career criminal, 20 arrests in Southern California over 20 years for theft, burglary, fraud. The writing was kind of on the wall, actually. He doctors a DD-214 well into the digital age, but it was made on a typewriter. The word metal was spelled wrong in every single instance, M-E-T-A-L. Yeah. Nobody caught it. He joined the Marine Corps, the League. He joined the American Legion post, one here in Arizona. He joined the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and he actually became the Marine liaison between Congresswoman Maxine Waters from LA and the Marine Corps. And in 2022, he keynoted the Marine Corps Ball in D.C. and then went to Inglewood, California, where he was the featured veteran at the swearing-in of the mayor of Los Angeles. And how did he get away with this? Nobody ever checked. Nobody ever checked. Nobody ever checked those DD-214. Nobody ever checked any of his stories. They took him at face value. I think that's what a lot of veterans do. You tell me, I'm not a veteran. But it's a family, right? You want to be able to trust people. Unfortunately, when you depart the Department of Defense, the defending is not over. And there's call to defend the sanctity of institutions, not just like the American Legion and VFW, but the institutions of journalism as well. Let's get to that. Where did I put? Oh, here it is. Because there's a lot more here. Stolen valor doesn't discriminate. Every person on the screen here is guilty of it, but in a different way. And Mr. Zinnerman was actually investigated by the FBI. That's the gentleman that I introduced who was the keynote of the Marine Ball. Now, he was a sergeant major, that's what he said. He saved his comrades from scatter bombs in Somalia was the story. He'd never been there, by the way. He actually was an E1 when he was dishonorably discharged. He was the subject of an FBI investigation that didn't start until after my story came out. Followed up with them a year later, and they said, yeah, we let it go. Nothing to be done. He had only made $3 million. And everybody on here has benefited in some way. Now, that was actually a crime. Most of these people, not a crime. I mean, Tim Walz, does everybody remember what he did? He said he saw combat. He didn't. Nothing illegal about that. No. And it doesn't discriminate. Democrats, Republicans. Kerry Lake is allegedly a journalist like me. That's Steve Slayton right there. He ran for House of Representatives. He said he survived a plane crash in Vietnam. Helicopter crash, I'm sorry. He was a helicopter mechanic privately. He never served, just so you know. Ran for House of Representatives, lost. Kerry Lake knew about that. She still decided to have him be her military spokesperson on her campaign. Democrats, Republicans, old, young, black, white, rich, poor. This is a disease of the mind that picks no favorites and certainly picks no winners. Everybody here is guilty of stolen valor in some way, and they're all people that I've explored. We're going to explore them a little bit more. Dick gave me such a great introduction. You don't need this. I think he said all of this, except that 2023, Arizona's best investigative series was Scamouflage, which is where you guys found me. It's this story right here. This is 3 big cases that I broke out of Arizona, and I'm going to share a little bit more about them. But these 3 cases, they perfectly explain the 3 reasons why people commit this crime, this offense of stolen valor. There's only 3 reasons. I've reviewed over 1,000 cases of it. And invariably, there's 3 reasons. There's no 4th reason. First reason, take this gentleman on the right. He's from Apache Junction. He's a con artist. It's easier to scam people when they think you're a war hero. Need I say more? Make up a story, con people. They'll be sympathetic to you. You got to sell your pitch, right? What's better than a war hero? Guy in the middle ran for city council for one of our great cities here in Arizona. He was a major in the Air Force, except that he actually never even went to boot camp. Also not a crime, because he didn't get elected. If he would have, maybe a prosecutor could have made an argument that he obtained political success, but that's not even in the law. No, financial gain is the only thing that's written into the law. We'll get more to that later. And the gentleman on the left, I've already told you enough about him. But he didn't do it for political power. He wasn't running for office. He didn't hold office. He wasn't conning anybody. I mean, he didn't make any money on it. This is the third kind. This is the kind of person who wakes up one day, 60 years old, and says, I've never contributed to society. It sucks. In fact, it just washes over this guy that his life to this point has been a net negative for the world. And that's a tough pill. I mean, damn, that's a tough pill to swallow. Like, nobody in this room has ever probably had to confront that in their own mind. But some people do. And how they deal with it is on them. There's a lot of ways to deal with that. It's got to be tough. I don't know what it feels like. But for some people, it's pretending to be a war hero for the rest of your life. For this guy, that's the case. Just something that you can sleep at night, I guess. Feel like you did something. Feel like people think that you're worth something. It's big. You go big or go home. Susan and I had this conversation on the way in. We drove an hour up here from Maricopa. And, there's a lot of things that are easy to debunk. And there's a lot of things that aren't. Faking a Purple Heart, for example, easy to debunk. I call the National Archive. They tell me if I have a Purple Heart or not. It's that easy. There's a lot of things that it's not that easy. I mean, if I told you all that when I was 18, I saved a baby from a burning building. I was just riding my bike. The building was burning. I ran inside. I pulled a kid out. I don't know. I went home. Could you ever prove I didn't do that? I mean, how would you, right? And you'd probably have, I'd probably have your respect, maybe, your sympathy, something. But that's not enough. That's not enough for these people. They have to know that they're really pulling one on you, It's a power thing. It's an ego thing. And my definition of it was this, as you see it on the screen. It's a product of either malice, cowardice, or vanity, and it misses its mark in each aspect. And when I say that, I mean sooner or later it all comes out, because it's too easy to disprove, but only if people are looking for it. And that's the problem. At any given time, there's 4 or 5 journalists maybe in the country that are researching this. And there's nobody prosecuting this. Documented cases of stolen valor just since 2000 are in the tens of thousands. There have been 40 cases ever prosecuted. Most of them did not result in a conviction. And this is where the term came from. If you grew up and you didn't hear this term stolen valor, that's normal. It didn't exist until 1998 when B.G. Burkett, who was a Vietnam veteran himself, wrote this book. And the title of it was Stolen Valor. And the reason we call it Stolen Valor is because this book exists. And what he called it was this, a national phenomenon, a weird ripple in the American psyche. In the late 90s, what he observed in the United States was Vietnam veterans, phony Vietnam veterans. Panhandling, that's where this all started from. Think about it. It's a competitive market. Panhandling is a job. You want to make money, and everybody got home from Vietnam, and as we know, very sadly, veterans are a group of people who are at a much higher risk of homelessness, experiencing homelessness. And all the bums who had dodged the draft or just didn't go, they're seriously upset the market, because everybody got home from Vietnam and they were making all the panhandle money, and that didn't really jive, so they started adding veteran to their cardboard signs. Oh, genius! They were right back in the market, real competitive, disabled veteran, worked like a charm. And this gentleman, he noticed it, because he was a Vietnam veteran. There's things you know, right? And there are things I don't know. Anybody here who was in Vietnam, you could say something that if I was pretending that I was in Vietnam, you've got something in your mind. Anybody here that you could challenge me and you could know if I really was there or not, right? And this guy, he was good at that. And he started quizzing people. And it became very clear to him that not just here and there, but most of the homeless veterans that he was interacting with, there's a marketing ploy. Unfortunately, the book came out. A lot of people realized that it was profitable and kind of started upping the ante. Fast forward to 2004. This gentleman, whose ugly face you're currently looking at, is named Gilbert Velasquez. If you think that's being harsh, you'll agree with me in a moment. This is the first case of stolen valor that was ever prosecuted. In fact, this is the case, singularly, this is the single case that put the Stolen Valor Act into federal law. Just a year later, the Stolen Valor Act of 2005. And you see the date on that paper, November of 2004. This gentleman was from Wilcox, just east of Tucson. So stolen valor was born here, and later I'll mention the numbers Out of those 40 stolen valor cases that have been prosecuted, more of them were prosecuted in Arizona than the other 49 states combined. But the first case, the case that actually brought about the law, was this one right here out of Arizona. Another guy who wakes up one day and just says, my life has been a net negative. I would like to see myself on the front page of a newspaper so I don't have to feel that way anymore. So I'm going to go to the local newspaper and, you know, what's a journalist going to do? Fact check me? Unfortunately, he was right. They ran the story. But it didn't really take long until people realized that it was all bullshit. So there's two definitions of stolen valor, right? Now we're at 2005. George Bush has signed the Stolen Valor Act into law, and it's a great law, okay? It's what we all were thinking when we raised our hands when I first came up here. The law that was signed said, if you tell somebody you're a veteran and you're not, get your ass in jail, okay? It was a great law. Everybody liked the law. That's not the law we have in the books today. Because what happened is the Supreme Court overturned the law on First Amendment grounds. We'll come back to it. So here's the law today. Subject to a fine, imprisonment, or both, an individual who, with intent to obtain money or property, fraudulently holds him or herself to be a recipient of one of the medals on this federally approved list. So I'll just give myself all the medals except these and then profit financially and I'll be good. That's legal. Great. Or I could pretend to have all these medals and just not accept any money. Also legal. Great. Okay, so I got a couple of great ways I can do this. The ethical part, this is the definition that we all think when we think stolen valor, right? This comes from the AFBA. And I love their definition. Direct quote. Stolen valor is essentially a lie. It involves falsely claiming service or rank. Yes, that is what it is. And I think that's what we all kind of want it to be. But unfortunately, Arizona Republic, as they reported just a couple of months ago, despite cases of stolen valor in Arizona, it is not a crime in Arizona. Stolen valor, there's no law against it. Hopefully that will change soon. But let me first run down Arizona. Why? Why here? Why is there so much concentration here? Starting out before the term was ever coined, stolen valor, 1985, before I was born, actually. Am I the only millennial here? Probably. The publisher of the Arizona Republic, another alleged journalist. Yeah, the publisher. Guy in my position, never serves. He decided that he did. That was 1985. People didn't have a word for it, so he got fired, and nobody really thought anything of it. Of course, after that, we get Gilbert Velasquez, and it only gets worse from there. By the way, stolen valor cases have only gone misdirection over time. Maybe because it's legal, maybe because, hey, if you do it, and the FBI investigates you, and you've made $3 million, and you've keynoted the Marine Ball, and you got kicked out and dishonorably discharged in E1, and you're going to be penalty-free. Unfortunately, people even read what I write, and they're like, well, anybody can do this. I warned a couple people that I'd get pissed off. So, I didn't serve, I can only imagine. So next we've got this guy, John, well, here we go. 2009, John William Rodriguez of Scottsdale. Now, he actually ends up going to jail for faking VA housing, basically gets housing benefits, right? And he ends up going to jail for that. We got a couple more cases. This one out of Queen Creek here, another fake Marine, fake Silver Star, never gets prosecuted. Kurt Bishop here, falsified 21 medals, including a Purple Heart on his way to getting a job as a cop, using his military experience to get the cop job. Never got in trouble for that. He got fired. That was it, though. Jeffrey Lee Bennett in Tucson was a two-star Air Force general who actually faked a military ID to get base access. Never went to jail either. And it keeps going. I was going to go through all these, but there's so many. I mean, it really kind of just keeps going on and on and on. So you might be wondering, why are there so many cases in Arizona compared to elsewhere? Oh, let me go back. Why so many cases here? First of all, so talking about how it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't, right? Because you see the reasons why. Some people, they're in a bind for money, so they want to be a con artist. So they want to con you and they want to make some money. Some people, they have money, and they just want the ego boost. So you got to be very careful. Democrats, I studied political science in college. I'm going to be very honest about this. It doesn't discriminate politically. Democrats tend to have some Democrats tend to have less respect for the institution of the military, and as such, they feel more levity to be able to exploit the military because it's an institution that they find to be very flawed and not deserving of respect. Meanwhile, a lot of Republicans who commit stolen valor, they tend to be more knowledgeable of the military, and they also tend to have more respect for the military. And because they have that respect, they see it as a more viable way to earn others' respect. So that's just one example of how this absolutely does not discriminate politically, doesn't discriminate socioeconomically. And looking through all these cases, okay, why Arizona? Because it's a military state, it's a state with a military legacy, it's the Wild West, it's the last frontier of lawlessness, and we have more laws on the books now than we did 30 years ago, but it's a place where 18 states have a state law against stolen valor, right? So none of those, those states are already eliminated. You look at the military legacy in this state, and you think about what it means here. And I'm from North Carolina, and that's a military state as well. But I know in Arizona, that it really means something, even more than it did where I grew up, to have served. And people who live here and who are from here, they understand the legacy. And if you have the sickness in your mind, it's the perfect thing to get an unlimited amounts of sympathy and respect because there's such a recognition of the weight and the gravity that it carries here, even compared to other places. In 2023, I asked 2,800 Arizona residents. I did not ask veterans. I did not ask family members of veterans. I asked random people, including people who were not U.S. citizens. Men on the street. I mean, absolute random people, 2,800 people, not the military community. And I asked, is the crime of stolen valor under-prosecuted in your community? And 86% of people said yes. These are not military people. These are civilians who have no dog in the fight other than a sense of justice. 1% of people said the penalties were too strict. And what are the penalties? It's a misdemeanor, means you get to keep your guns, and it's 1 year maximum, and out of those 40 cases, maybe 1 or 2 of them even got the year. And good behavior. I mean, come on. So 2005, Bush signs the Stolen Valor Act into law. And it's great. People love it. It's exactly the way I described. Supreme Court strikes it down. First Amendment, right? I can dress up like a cop. I can put on the hat, I can have the handcuffs, the gun, everything. Fake badge, walk around, not a crime, right? The second I detain you, I've committed a crime, impersonating a law enforcement official. That's a felony. And pretty much case law from the whole impersonating a law enforcement officer was applied in the U.S. Supreme Court to impersonating a veteran. And they basically said, yeah, until you're benefiting, it's playing dress up. And in this country, we have First Amendment right to play dress up like whoever we want to dress up as. And a lot of people didn't agree with that. It's very unpopular, actually, very unpopular. But they had to rewrite the legislation because it got struck down. It was done. It was off the books. We had nothing. So in comes the Obama administration, and he signs the Stolen Valor Act of 2013, which is the one that I read for you earlier. If you're gaining money or property and you're faking one of the medals on an approved list, gosh, yes, it's narrow. But the law got back on the books. And this is the thing now, guys. There's 2 calls to action that I can give you. I mean, we could sit here and just be mad. And I could tell you, I could go back to that timeline and I could tell you all the details from all those stories. And there's so many more. We could be here all day. But what's the point if nothing changes, right? When I got into this, it was fun. I like busting bad guys. Just fun. I mean, who wouldn't? It feels good. This is a liar. They swindle a lot of people. And I get to be the guy that comes in and says, bullshit. It feels good, right? But, I've been doing this since I was 20. And it occurred to me, I'd like to actually start making a difference. I could call these people out for the rest of my life. And if nothing changes, what's the point? I mean, you'll hear the point because we've got a great personal impact story coming in just a couple of minutes. But I want bigger. I want bigger. So my calls to action for you are two things. Number one, if you are involved in any veterans group that involves verifying documents to accept membership, Billy Zinnerman was keynoting the Marine Ball because one American Legion post in a town of 1,500 didn't check his DD-214. He used that membership to join VFW. He used that membership to join the Marine League. He used that to become a liaison to a congressperson, and he used that to be keynoting a federal ball because of one mistake at an American Legion post in a town of 1,500. If that clerk or volunteer, and should it be their job? Should that be their obligation, their responsibility to do investigative work? We're talking about retirees who are trying to do something like this. They're trying to have a sense of community, eat some good food, smile and laugh and feel some togetherness. That's all they're trying to do. It's a sad world we live in. But if you are responsible for verifying documents, be vigilant. Because that one volunteer in that little town 20 years ago could have prevented everything that came after. And the other thing I want you to do relates to this right here. This is Walt Blackman. He is a state senator here in Arizona. He has authored legislation in this session that's going on right now, this legislative session, for Arizona's State Stolen Valor Act of 2025. It gives everything that the original law did, and it's just for Arizona. It even does more. Impersonating a veteran will be a crime if this law passes. Katie Hobbs, she does not like signing legislation, especially Republican legislation. Guys, that's what this is. If nothing else, you can write to your local representative, your local senator, and the governor, and you can encourage them to vote yes on Walt Blackman's Stolen Valor Law, and you can encourage the governor to sign it when it passes. If nothing else, that's the action you can take, because I don't like to think we're just here to complain and point fingers and say, these people suck, and look at them. No, we want to actually make a difference. And so far, I like to think I've been able to make at least a little bit of difference. But don't take it from me. Take it from my very good friend, Susan Bonsante, who I met 2 years ago when I was investigating her ex-husband who lived here in Apache Junction. He has conned so many people out of millions of dollars over time. I'm going to let Susan share a few words about her experience so you can see the personal impacts that stolen valor, even the legal kind, can have.
Hello, everyone. I am incredibly honored to be here. It's a little intimidating. This is the largest group I think I've ever spoken in front of. So, as Marcia Brady was instructed to do, picturing you all naked. Well, maybe not all of you, maybe just the front row. I do want to thank Elias. Without him, I would never have found my voice. He was very persistent, gently, and telling me that this was a story that really needed to be told. And I am not as eloquent with finding words without reading, so you're going to have to, I'm sure you'll grant me some grace here because I'm going to read my story. And to Elias's point about Mr. Blackman, I did attend a committee meeting last week regarding that bill, and I'm afraid it's probably going to get watered down, but I did have an opportunity to speak there. So I do also encourage you to reach out to him and tell him how you feel, okay? I can't imagine anyone in this room is a fan of anyone who lies and is deceptive to this extent. So. Stanley Wayne Weinberg, Jr. I am asking you to remember his name. And if you haven't read the story that Elias did, it's called Purple Heartbreak. And has anyone in here read that story yet? Okay, so I encourage you to read all of his stories, Purple Heartbreak is the one that pertains to my life. Stolen valor is neither a victimless crime nor a faceless one. I'm standing before you as one of the dozens of women that he has victimized across the country. My story today picks up where the news article left off. Stan is a womanizer, an adept con artist, a fraud, a serial predator of women, and he also commits the disgraceful act of stolen valor to accomplish all of these things. Stan is my ex-husband. He's a veteran, and I was incredibly proud of him until I discovered the ugly truth. He not only made a career out of deception and relationships, but he also dared to lie about something sacred: military service and sacrifice. One of his trademarks is that he cons women into marrying him. I had no idea that I was at least, I say at least because there could be many more, sixth wife. I thought I was number 2. Since our divorce in 2023, he's continued his romance scans, which have shockingly included even more proposals. I had no idea of the number of women that had preceded me, that he had stolen from and manipulated. Fast forward to the end of our very short marriage, I still didn't know the terrible secrets and betrayals that awaited. I did receive an incredible blessing from God that led me to start unraveling what I can only describe as a mountain of deception. I literally woke up one day to discover the man that I loved and thought was the love of my life had fabricated nearly every single detail of his life story. I had no reason to believe, not to believe, when he told me he had served in the military for 15 years. I believed him when he told me he had a rank of E7 and was a staff sergeant. I believed him when he told me he was in special forces. I believed him when he told me he'd been wounded twice. And I believed him when he told the tragic story of the circumstances leading to him receiving a Purple Heart. I obviously would not be standing here before you if any of that were true. Once I learned the horrific truth about my husband, I discovered that shortly after our separation, he obtained fraudulent Purple Heart license plates for his vehicles. By this time, I had enough information through the Freedom of Information Act to confirm that he was a liar. I reported him to the Arizona Department of Transportation, and a formal investigation ensued. Although he was required to return the plates due to a technical issue on their end, which allowed him to obtain them without submitting his DD-214s, he was not prosecuted. Stanley Wayne Weinberg Jr. has conned his way into the hearts, homes, beds, and purses of many women. We've provided and given him everything from cash, lavish gifts, vacations, housing, real estate, expensive vehicles, and undeserved kindness. He's moved seamlessly from one victim to the next for decades. I've put myself at great personal risk, spending the last year and a half exposing him and attempting to protect innocent women from further victimization of him. To add further insult to injury, last January, he obtained an order of protection against me for sharing the disgusting truths about him. Unfortunately, the judicial system failed me at my hearing to contest by upholding the order. However, it was eventually overturned by the appellate court many months later, but not before both my First and Second Amendment rights were unjustly infringed upon for nearly a year, and at a cost of over $14,000 in attorney fees. Just standing here today before you puts my life at great risk. He's threatened to put a bullet in my head and bury me in the desert where no one can find my body, all for the crime of exposing him and his disgusting lies and warning others. You might rightfully think that after these revelations, the article, and all the exposure, that Stan would have had to face some consequences for his actions. You would unfortunately be wrong. He is still employed at a global company that has a high-level security requirement and supposedly prides itself in placing great value in their extensive hiring of veteran employees. They are aware and have full knowledge of his stolen valor. He has been promoted and retains his job there. Before knowing the truth, I actually composed his resume of lies. To this day, he still walks around boasting about his fake Purple Heart and conning women, claiming to have endured unspeakable horrors in combat. He told elaborate war stories, painting himself as a hero who had suffered for his country. His most dangerous mission has probably been trying to keep all of the lies straight. Stolen valor is not just a harmless lie. It is a slap in the face to every soldier who has truly bled, sacrificed, and suffered for this country. No fraud, no liar, no coward can ever take away the truth of your sacrifices. I'm sorry. It is an insult to the families who have lost loved ones in battle. It is the ultimate act of cowardice. His lies will catch up to him because integrity, unlike deception, stands the test of time. Thank you for your time.
Susan's story is so powerful, and listen, this is one of literally over 100 stories like this that I've had both the pleasure and the misfortune of telling. At least 3 or 4 of those times I've had credible threats against my life as a journalist just for writing about this. It's a reason why so few people are willing to do it, so few newspapers and editors willing to take on the risk and the danger, the cost, the investment it takes to investigate this, and then the risk that you have to bear of violence against you. There is such a almost zero reward for people who do this. I'm not making myself out to be a martyr, guys. I get paid for this. I do fine. But I want to emphasize that point. Susan is one of thousands, tens of thousands of people, men, women of all backgrounds in this country who have stories like that. It does not get prosecuted. That credible investigation, I asked an OIS detective who had confronted Stanley Weinberg about lying on a government document about his Purple Heart in order to get plates, license plates, which themselves are government documents affirming his Purple Heart. And I asked the investigator why. He said there is no legal avenue to prosecute this. No legal avenue, and that's exactly what we want to change. Guys, thank you so much for having me today here. I just changed your slide. On the last slide of mine, if you have it, I do have contact information, or you guys can find me. My show, 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursdays on KFNX. It's 1100 a.m. I got to plug it because if you like topics like this, and if you're one of the odd few, and I'm sorry if you are, who actually enjoys hearing me speak, you can do it every week for 2 hours, and that's exactly where to find me. Thanks so much for having us both, guys. You're a great group, and it's my honor to be here.
Elias and Susan, I want to take this opportunity to present you each with a certificate recognizing and commending your dedicated support of veteran initiatives, U.S. deployed service members, and this East Valley Red Friday Patriots group. Welcome to the Order of the Red.
Thank you so much. I am truly honored. I am honored. Could we have a picture?
One moment.
With you two?
You don't want a picture with
Yes,
me?
I do.
Also, I would like to present each of you with this little memento. It is our Red Friday Patriot lapel pin, and we hope that you wear this with pride. I know that this is a very coveted item here at our Red Friday group, and we would absolutely be elated to have you, thank you,
I will be
to have you wear this.
honored to wear it, sir.
And we would also appreciate very much so you're spreading the word about Red Friday.
Absolutely. I could tell you guys that that video, when it comes out, will be shared on the American Veterans Magazine website and elsewhere, as well as social media channels. So, and we will make sure to tag you, tag the group on Facebook, everything like that. And
Superb.
we'll be in touch with all
Thank
that
you.
stuff. Guys,
Thank
let's,
you.
Let's grab a.
Thank you.
Let's get a. Great.
Appreciate it.
You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. And I guess I. Okay, we'll turn it down.
Can I have a hoo-ah for these two? Susan, Elias, thank you again. I do have a few announcements that I would like to make and bring to your attention. Sarah Klug. Sarah, raise your hand, please. Sarah is the co-chair of the Service for Veterans Committee, Apache Trail Chapter, National Society Daughters of the American Revolution. One of Sarah's responsibilities has been to encourage women in her DAR chapter to crochet and knit handmade lap afghans for our veterans. At their last meeting, they had 10 afghans donated to be presented to local veterans. Sarah would like to work with our Red Friday group in delivering those 10 Afghans to wheelchair or homebound veterans here in our community. And if possible, she would like to help with the delivery of those Afghans to the veterans, and if given permission, take photographs, assuming they consent. If you know of a homebound or a wheelchair veteran that you wish to recommend for one of these wonderful gifts, especially if they are R.E.D members, then Sarah will have a sign-up sheet in the back of the room after you turn in your badges. And she will need your name, your phone number as the recommender, and the name of the veteran that you are recommended to be presented with the Afghan and the community where the veteran resides. Sarah will coordinate with you, the recommendor, about getting the vet's permission and the date and time for the presentation of the Afghan. You have pen and everything you need, Sarah? Good deal. As noted, please plan to attend the upcoming meetings on February 14 and February 21. We've scheduled guest speakers for these dates that will be delivering presentations on some very, very interesting and informative topics. And please, mark your calendars for March 24. There will be a veteran stand down at the Sunland Village East Auditorium in Mesa. They're expecting more than 1,000 to be in attendance, and I'm confident that there will be veteran service providers there that you may wish to explore. I will email each of you with the details as we approach that March 24 date. Also, please be aware that our Red Friday group has been privileged with the use of this fine Legion Hall. The Legion has made special provisions for our Red Friday group, and we are extremely grateful for their support. As you might imagine, there are very few facilities in the area that offer this much seating capacity, audio-video capability, parking space, and food service, much less at no charge. Therefore, I believe the very least we as individuals can do is purchase a breakfast meal and offer a gratuity to our fine food service staff. I know that some of you may eat breakfast before you arrive here, or you may not generally eat breakfast at all. That's fine. But please, pay for a breakfast meal when you attend. It's up to you whether or not you eat it or not, or take it home. But I believe we owe our host for the use of this facility. And I would also ask that whenever you leave, please make sure you deposit your name badges back there at the reception area. To our guests, thank you very much for joining us today. We sincerely hope that you will have the opportunity to join us again. Please know that you will always be welcome at our Red Friday assemblies. And as a final reminder, let's not overlook the importance of our mission to keep our deployed warriors in our thoughts and in our prayers, and continue to demonstrate our support for these fine men and women. Enjoy your weekend.